Oh, yes, guys. Running music. Hour number 2 of OverDrive. Jim, Tatti, Frankie C, and Peter Holland with you on a trade deadline Tuesday. An hour away.
Yeah.
An hour away.
Busy. Jays have made some moves. Paul DeYoung.
Yep.
Shortstop with Bo Bichette.
Sounds like he's not going to be out too long.
Yeah, not going to be out long. Just some inflammation, so that's encouraging news. Jimmy, you brought up a good point before we went to break in the last hour about star players getting involved at the higher levels, right?
Yeah.
Having a seat at the table.
I like
Tiger
that.
Woods is going to be on the board of directors for the PGA Tour.
A true partnership is what that is.
Well, like Pete, as a former player and a pigeon as well at times in the league, didn't you just really want star players to speak up a little bit more and just kind of look out? Like, I feel like that was always the chatter among some guys. Like, if there's something you really need to get done, you need the star players to advocate for everyone.
Yeah, I think the star players should absolutely have a voice. And maybe there was times in my career where I wish some guys had done a little bit more of that. But I think I was pretty lucky with some of the guys that I was able to play with. Like, I think Dion Phaneuf, I don't know if you agree.
Oh, yeah, no, within the team, for sure. Like, I think we played with some guys that were outstanding within the team. It's more from, like, a league point of view.
Oh,
right? like a bigger picture league thing. Like, Tiger Woods
there you go
is
with that
be,
big picture thing.
Well, listen.
Yeah, forget about that. Let's talk about the big picture.
He's steering the ship for the tour now. Like, it's going in whatever direction Tiger wants it to go. That's the influence that he has.
Sure, but he's also going to take input from players around the league. And I never sat in on any of the NHLPA discussions where guys like Sidney Crosby are sitting in on those and having lockout discussions. But I would imagine that they do go to bat. And to your point, you need guys like that to speak on your behalf and be an advocate for things that you want. But at the same time, too, I also believe that there's a little bit of a misalignment in terms of desires and wants, because guys like that are in a completely different situation than, guys like you and I are. They have 8-year contracts, and we're sitting there just trying to grind away on a fourth line in and out of the lineup role.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think the public perception when a CBA is struck is, well, the top end's looked after, and there's always, much like regular society, there's a squeeze in the middle class.
Well, and there's just a difference between a former player or someone who's lived it being in those discussions compared to maybe someone who hasn't, right? Or it's
true.
more like an executive type, right? Like, sometimes it takes a former player being in the room in those things to bring something to light, and steer things in the right direction. But listen, Tiger Woods, his voice is going to be loud and things are going to go in the direction he wants things to go. What direction are the Blue Jays going in right now, Jimmy?
I think they're moving forward. I like what they've done. So Bichette goes out and automatically there's a replacement. Romano went out and automatically there was a replacement. And Cabrera was a nice add. So I like that type of philosophy from the front office. Clearly everybody's identified they need a right-handed bat. So I'm looking for that in the next hour. And Grappler, as I said earlier, will step in anytime there's any kind of trade. Been pretty quiet so far.
And you bring up a good point there. When something happens that swiftly, right? Like there's a shortstop that goes out of the lineup in Bichette. There's a shortstop coming in today. Romano's had the back issues and some injury things flare up. There's another reliever, a very good reliever who can be, somewhat of a replacement. Like, that shows you that management, ownership clearly believes in this group, believes that there's more to this group. But it also tells you, like, the window is right now with these guys, right? Like, you have some favorable contracts that you have on that roster. You just need more consistency as far as if it's going to be the pitching performing every single night, whether it's starters, bullpen arms, closing out games. There needs to be another power bat, right-handed bat somewhere in the lineup. There needs to be runners in scoring position has been a big issue for this team. Like, things need to come together at the right time, but at least ownership and management is giving this team all the tools that they need to work with.
So joining us now on the Maple Toyota Hotline is Chris Colabello, the former Blue Jay. Chris, welcome. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Very good. We're pleased that you're here. So we were referring to a Travis Snyder tweet from earlier today that brings the humanity back to the trade deadline and all the things that a player must go through. So let's just put you back in the Blue Jays clubhouse an hour before the trade deadline, 2 hours before a pretty big ball game against Baltimore. What's the vibe like in that clubhouse at this particular point?
Well, I think, really my one real reference point for the deadline was 15, obviously, and there was a lot of excitement for us. I think I've talked with my friends throughout Major League Baseball. It depends on what side of it you're on. I think you get a pretty good idea of which way the organization wants you to go at that point, whether we're going for it or not. So you're kind of just waiting to find out. I'll really never forget the day we got Price. Osuna and I were doing a card show somewhere at like the mall. And people kept coming up to us and asking us, are we going to get Price? Are we going to get Price? I said, your guess is as good as mine. So for us personally, at that point, I think it was a huge boost for the clubhouse. But you just go about your business. It's not – I don't think there's anything very specific that changes other than you just kind of sitting and trying to find out. So you're not necessarily worried about it, but you kind of, I think, get an idea of which direction the organization thinks we're capable of going at that point.
We get John Gibbons on this show from time to time. We're big fans of his. And, myself playing hockey, Peter playing hockey, like trade deadline comes and goes. And usually someone addresses the team, whether it's the general manager or the head coach, and kind of says, okay, boys, like this is the group we're going forward with. We believe in you guys. It's pretty boilerplate stuff. But did Gibby have a speech ready for you guys at the conclusion of that trade deadline to kind of let you know how much he believed in that group?
Heck no. Gibby would never give a speech. He'd just come in there. No, Gibby was the best. Somebody asked me about him yesterday. I don't even think Gibby knew we made a trade when he got to the field that day. No, Gibbs the man. I mean, there are so many things that didn't need to be said with him. And somebody was actually asking me about him yesterday and how was it playing for him. And I can't say anything more than he had wonderful feel for – what players needed. And I think the biggest part with that 2015 team is he just realized we were a cast of characters, man, just guys that had personalities for days, and he just let us be us. And I think that was what fit that team properly, right? It was just go be yourselves. You're going to fight like brothers. You're going to love each other like brothers. And then, at 7:05, you're going to go kick the snot out of somebody. So, or 7:07, sorry, and at the Rogers Center. But, yeah, we were not a big speech team. I don't think I played for many in the big leagues that were. And I think other sports can obviously be different. You see it in football a lot. See it in hockey where, to your point, there are more team speeches. But I think in baseball, you're just around each other so much, you just assume that everybody knows what you're thinking.
So let's go back to the Jays. When you're in a situation where your best reliever goes down and another one is acquired, and then last night your shortstop goes down and one is acquired. I mean, that's got to be a big boost in that dressing room. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think it's, they've gotten two players who have obviously pretty good resumes in the big leagues. And that, like I said, I think that's just a sign to the guys in the room that, we're here and we're going to go, boys. Like it's very rare that you get an opportunity to play in meaningful baseball games, right? It's not as common as people think it is. And I think even if you have stretches of success, I mean, think about the fact that we went 22 years between playoff appearances, right? So that's a long time. So when you have a chance to play meaningful games, I think it's critical that you go for it. Like the thing that's impressed me in baseball this year is it seems like, even the Cubs and the Padres, who some people would say are kind of out of the race or, looking at it from the bottom up, they're going for it, which I wish more teams would, because it makes for an exciting brand of baseball and really helps, I think, drive players to places where they can go find a little bit more and better energy, which I think is what the fans really want from our game. We went through a few years there where it seemed like, there were 6 teams that were trying and everybody else was just kind of looking up. So it's really cool. And I think obviously for the Jays to be able to make those moves to do some patchwork. And then obviously if you do get those guys back, and it seems like Bo is going to be okay, I think, hopefully. I've known Bo since he was a little kid, and he's obviously a big part of that team. But to go get a guy like DeJong, you feel like you won't miss a beat. Obviously, you want Bo in the lineup, but the energy boost to have a guy who can kind of fill in for him, and you're not worried about a premium position is it's a big deal, and obviously with Hicks too.
Well, you kind of answered the question I was going to ask you, but I like how you said talking about meaningful games, because that's one of the things we've been chatting a little bit here on the show is down the stretch here, the Jays need to continue putting themselves in positions, and especially within their division, getting in the win column. And, you know, when a guy like Bo, who's such an important piece of the Jays roster, he gets an injury like he did last night, what's the vibe in the room, either during the game or the remainder of the game, after the game? Guys are a little bit concerned, obviously, waiting to hear how bad it may be when a player like Bo pulls up limp like that.
Yeah, I mean, you realize it sucks, right? You know how big how critical a part he is. He's obviously having a great year, but you just you got to move on, right? You got to do it for him as much as you do it without him, because he's helped you get to the point you're at, and obviously there's nobody in the room that feels worse than him, because everybody else gets to still do their job. It's a tough blow, but it's kind of business as usual, and you just got to figure out how to make it work, because somebody taught me when I was young in my career, the game goes on with or without you, right? And if we let the moment get too big, it can affect us in a negative way at a time of the year when, to your point, every win matters, and especially playing in that division, right? You're looking at 5 teams that, you know, could arguably be in first place in, you know, 3 of the other divisions in baseball. So it's going to be a nail biter here. It's cool to see the AL East be the AL East, which, you know, I'm biased obviously, because, you know, why wouldn't I be? But it's really important that you just keep going, right, and do it as much for them as you do it without them.
Yeah, what do you make of the Jays' record versus the AL East? They're significantly under 500 against AL East opponents this season, and it hasn't gone well for them, especially against Baltimore. Like, is that division, we talk about it all the time, it being a gauntlet, but from a player's point of view, you're in the clubhouse, you're getting ready to play these teams, whether it's the Rays, the Sox, the Yankees, the Orioles, when they're good. Like, is it that much of a gauntlet, like within the clubhouse mentally, or what is it that's leading the Blue Jays to a 7-21 record versus the AL East this year?
Yeah, it's funny, you know. I think baseball, you don't tend to think about matchups as much as you do in other sports, right? Because it's more of a one-on-one position battle. But matchups matter, right? I saw Toronto when they were here in town in Boston, and you know, obviously they haven't performed well against the Red Sox either, but I think it's just when you play good teams consistently, like the matchups matter. The Red Sox got super left-handed against Gausman, which, you know, obviously is not his kryptonite, but certainly puts him in a different position as a pitcher. So that's where the matchups really matter. It's really how the guy on the mound stacks up against the hitters. So it's a tough division. I don't necessarily think you think about it going into the series or into the games. It's 162 games, so it's business as usual when you go into it. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side. I think a lot of times you get on the plane and you don't even know where you're going. So you figure it out when you show up. But I think it's just happenstance at this point. And obviously it's a very good division. So, you know, I just watched Boston take 2 from the Braves, who are, you know, the best team in baseball, arguably. So I just think the AL East is that good, and it's nice to see. I think it's good for baseball when it is, because you've got 5 organizations that, especially, you know, 3 of them in Toronto, Boston, and New York, who have pretty storied histories, and obviously the Orioles are no slouches, and Tampa's a newer org. But it's just a really good division, and tough to win games there.
Chris, I'm looking for some sort of a comparison. I mean, obviously in 2015, there's a lot of magic on that Blue Jays roster. This particular edition of the Blue Jays has had some issues going into the All-Star break. Obviously, Manoah up and down and sort of a question mark. Ryu debuts tonight. There's been defensive lapses. There's been Vladdy not doing what Vladdy is capable of. And the bottom line is they're still in pretty good shape. And if some of that comes back with a positive answer, that could be like a booster rocket. I mean, how do you assess this team, and is there any 2015 about it?
You know, it's funny. Like, I've been asked that a couple years in a row now. And watching this team from afar, like, we have to kind of, that 2015 team was special for all of its own reasons, right? There was so much magic. It was like the stars weren't aligned. So to compare a team to us is it's almost unfair, right? There was a buzz around the city. Like, Toronto is now getting used to having a good baseball team again, right? Since 2015, it's been like, you know, those 2 years in 15 and 16 when we were obviously who we were, and then there was a kind of a quick rebuild with the youth movement, with driven by Bo and Vladdy, obviously, and then kids like Manoah, getting a guy like Gosman, things like that. So it's still like it's a young team, but it's a team that's experienced. So I haven't felt the city. I would love to be up there for the night Jose gets into putting the level of excellence, so I haven't felt it, right? I know that when I walked through the streets of Toronto when I was there, it was a different air, it was a different attitude. The day we traded for Price, everything changed. It was magic, and I don't know if the city's spoiled a little bit maybe now, and I don't mean to downplay it, but they're still young and they haven't necessarily put their foot down and said, here we are, league. And I don't know if that's like a thing or not, but that's just kind of how it feels. They're very, very talented, supremely talented. They do have some veteran guys who have won, and Brandon Bell, guys like Springer, but it's just a little bit different, right? And I think that magic is all in there. They just have to figure out how to untap it. And certainly something like this happening to Bo could be a spark for them. That can really drive them in the right direction, because now it's going to give other guys an opportunity. It gave you an opportunity to go get a guy like DeYoung who could come and really kind of reboost his career, because that's a really talented player who's done some things in the game. So TBD, I guess, but I certainly think they're a fun group to watch, and I wish them nothing but the best. And even though I have to live in Massachusetts, don't tell anybody I said that.
Yeah, exactly. Hyun-Jin Ryu is going to make his first start since Tommy John surgery in the majors. He's been in the minors for a little while now, had some starts. Have you ever played with a pitcher that came back from this surgery? Like, what can Jays fans expect on the mound from Ryu in his return?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the way these things go now, it's very normal to come back as just as good, if not a better version of yourself. Certainly all the rehab and the process to get back on the mound and get healthy. I think most guys tend to not skip a beat when they do come back. So, the boost that a guy like that who, perennial Cy Young candidate can kind of give you is huge. It's as good as trading for a guy like David Price at the deadline, right? It's the same kind of feel. It's the same kind of vibe. So, I'm thinking of guys that went through that experience. I didn't necessarily have any of them in real time when I was in the big leagues, but certainly played with guys that went through the surgery itself, and they ended up having really good careers after that. So certainly I expect nothing less than what he is and who he has been as a pitcher, and I think it can be a huge addition to the team.
So if you were running the show in Los Angeles for the Angels and you had Shohei Ohtani on your team, what are you doing? Are you trading this guy for prospects, or are you saying we're just going to give it one more shot? We're going to wait for Mike Trout to come back from injury and see if we can sneak into that final wild card position?
It's a tough call. It really is. I mean, I think it's hindsight will always be 20/20, right? After it happens, you'd be able to say, oh, well, we should have done this, we should have done that. We're talking about a guy who is just a special talent, right? And if you're sitting in a front office and you're evaluating the guy, at a minimum, you have to think about the business implications of what trading a guy like that would do, because guess what? There's still going to be butts in the seats and beers sold to watch him pitch and hit for the rest of the year. So it's definitely above my pay grade. I've never had to sit in that seat and think about what I would do. Certainly I've conjured up some ideas in my own head over time and said, oh yeah, well, this is obviously, why wouldn't you do that? But realistically, I think it's a sign more than anything to the player that you want to continue moving forward with him past this year. So look, I don't think I could trade him because that's how good he is. I think it's it's a little bit. It's good to see in this generation, I guess, guys have a chance to stay with one organization. I always thought, when you have guys that talented, it'd be nice to see them play the thing out in one place. And obviously free agency is a different animal nowadays, but certainly I loved the fact that Derek Jeter got to spend his whole career in New York, and wish Mookie Betts had spent his whole career in Boston, especially with storied franchises.
Chris, I really like how you described what it was like in 2015 to walk around downtown Toronto, because that was very accurate. And I like how you sort of categorized where the Jays are now. And I'm going to add two more pieces to that. And I think there's a lot of optimism here, but still waiting for it to be legitimized. And two things that get in the way of it for me are Tampa on a yearly basis does what the Jays are expected to do with a lower budget. And Baltimore has the rebuild that has been accelerated. And boy, it's bearing fruit at just an enormous rate this year. Those two stories for me sort of cloud, not distract, but cloud some good feeling towards the Jays, not to take anything away because the best is yet to come. Do you agree with any of that?
Yeah, I think so. Right. The storylines kind of, they make themselves, right? Like they build themselves. And obviously Baltimore has been not very good for a while, and you could see the early signs of that kind of blossoming into something bigger. I think if you had told me at this time last year that they were going to be in first place and running away with the division almost, especially after Tampa had the start they did, I would have probably told you were crazy, because I didn't think that they had enough experience to kind of run that race, especially after getting behind the way they did to Tampa. Not that you look at the first 40 games of the year and say, okay, the season's done, but it's a testament to that staff and what they're doing and the attitude that they're creating, where you have to believe you can win, right? You have to believe that you're good. So much of what happened in 2015 for us was we just believed we were going to beat the snot out of people. I'm telling you, like with the day we traded for Price, we looked around the room at each other and we didn't have to say anything. And we were down 7 games at the deadline, and we're like, we're going to win the division, boys, and it's not going to be close. And it wasn't. And so that attitude matters. And I think that's the piece that Toronto's been missing, right? That's the piece where, and I don't know if it's one individual or, a personality in the room to just stand up and say, hey, boys, we are this good. Especially when you're dealing with other teams that are very talented around you, right? Like we're talking about, a Rays team that got off to arguably the hottest start of anyone in the last 10 years, and a team in Baltimore who's full of energy and things like that. And then you have the usual suspects in the Yankees and Red Sox who are never going to go anywhere, right? So it's a gauntlet. The division's a gauntlet, and I think at some point we're going to see the best version of this Blue Jays team. It's just seemed like every time there's been something, right? Whether it's an injury, whether it's, a guy like Manoah who's, trending towards stardom and then, has a tough start. So it seems like it's been something, right, for them. And at some point somebody's going to put their foot down and say, hey, we are that good. We can be that good. And I think the best is yet to come.
Chris, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it and really enjoyed this.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. And enjoy your last month of summer. I know it'll start snowing there in like 4 weeks. So.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, go Bruins. See you later.
Memories.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Take care. Yeah.
Chris Colabello joined us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. And Guy, check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com.
You know how he talks about that, like maybe they need that one thing that
Swagger. He's talking about swagger.
It's
Quiet
that
confidence.
swagger. But I think it comes from a pack mentality. I don't think it's one person that can drive the bus on that. I think the whole group believes in that, and everyone beats that drum together.
I agree with you, but outwardly to the fan base, it's always one or two guys, isn't it?
For sure, because the fans see what they see in the dugout, or they see it on the bench, or they see it on the field or on the ice. But in the dressing room and what you can actually hear, if it's everyone pulling together, then that's when it makes the most waves. That's when it's like you really have no choice if you're part of that group than to not act like that way and have that belief in your group.
I'm still hung up on him saying that you just jump on the plane and you don't know where you're going. Like
I know they travel a lot. Hey?
Well, it must be nice to play in a league where it's just summer and warm all year long.
I
Because
guess so, yeah.
Frankie, come on, you circled the days when we were going to Florida or Tampa.
First thing we did as soon as we got the schedule.
Yeah.
When are we going to Florida? When are we going to
Florida?
California, Arizona?
And then on the flip side, you're like, when are we going to Winterpeg?
Yeah.
Gotta pack warm.
We always talk nice about Winnipeg on this show.
Yeah.
Well, there's no reason not to. It's just
Yeah.
cold.
It's just cold. Yeah, it's just cold.
Guys sort of got out of that one.
Okay, I've played in Russia for 2 years. That's
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah, exactly. Russia's cold. I played in Sweden. You played in Sweden.
I played in
That was
Sweden's
chilly.
dark too.
Yeah. How do you like that? Sun rises at 9 a.m., goes
wanna
down
talk-
at
yeah.
2 p.m.
Well, it works for me.
You're sleeping till 10 a.m. anyways.
At least I get some sunlight out of that.
We got something coming up after the break?
Yeah, it's called Know Your Teammates.
What is that?
I have no idea. I've never
We'll
done
get
this
into
before.
it on the other side, won't we?
We'll chat then. Okay. Overdrive continues on TSN 1050 and TSN 2.
I am the smartest man alive!
Why pound pints at the bar when you can spend your evening playing games with a bunch of losers instead?
Bad news, Masters. I sunk your battleship.
I choose business ethics.
Live from the TSN studios in Agincourt, it's time for the OverDrive Trivia Night Challenge.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Here's your host, Kara Wagland.
Kara sends her regrets. Wow.
You couldn't be
Couldn't
here
be
today.
here.
No, Kara could not be here
Jimmy,
today.
you got stiffed.
I got stiffed. It's called Know Your Teammates, and that should have been accompanied with some nice, crisp animation.
Well,
Shout out to the grappler for a
Yeah.
bumper there.
pulled that out of the
Wow.
archives, Grappler.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
It's been sitting there since, I guess the original trivia challenge of Team Corsi versus Team I Test.
Ah, okay. Wow.
And yeah,
Old
it's
days.
funny. As it was running, JP and I were saying to ourselves, something is going to be said here that's going to completely date it. And it happened right at the end by mentioning Kara Wagland.
That's okay.
I thought
Jimmy
I covered
got
it
stiffed.
nicely. Yeah.
That's all right.
Kara couldn't make it today. Sends her regrets.
All right, Jimmy, why don't you tell everyone what we're going to do here?
We're going to do this. I'm just going to bounce some trivia stuff from the 2015-16 Maple Leafs, a.k.a. the team that solidified Austin Matthews.
Yeah. So Peter and I played together for 2 seasons. We'll see how well we know our teammates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just before we get going, how was the Marner wedding?
I wasn't there, Jimmy.
Oh.
Were you there?
I felt like I was the amount of videos that were on my Twitter timeline.
I'm sorry.
Shout out. I was at the Rich Clune wedding. We had a blast. It was on the same night. We had a great time.
There you go.
Shout out to
Another
the crew there.
star-studded event.
It took
was
you
a
a little while to
star-studded
come up with the
event.
comeback, but nonetheless.
No problem. Rich Clune's wedding was a great time.
Okay, are you ready
Shout
for
out
this?
to Dickie. Yes. Do we have the opportunity to steal if the other guy gets it wrong? What do you think, Jim?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, fair game.
No, you can't steal.
What do you mean? If you get it wrong or I get it wrong, then you have a chance to steal or I have a chance to steal.
And Grappler's keeping score, right?
Yeah, grapplers.
Okay.
JP, I don't know. JP.
Man, I got
Somebody
as
back
well.
there. Somebody back there has to do something eventually. So,
All right, let's get into it, Jimmy.
number one, who led the Maple Leafs in goals during the 2015-16 season?
So you got to direct it to someone.
Frankie C.
Nazem Kadri.
Morons! I can't take it.
P.A. Parento?
Wow, I love that. Didn't know we were going to have sound effects there, but nonetheless,
All
let's
right,
go on.
1-0 to Pete.
Number two, going to our winner from the first question, Peter Holland. Who led the Maple Leafs in points during the 15-16 season?
I'm going to go with Kadri on that one.
Oh, this is a resounding lead.
Basically stealing my answers now.
Okay, now we're
2-goal
going
leads, the worst lead in hockey.
2-0 for Peter over Frankie C. So we'll direct this question to Mr. aforementioned Frankie C. Drafted by the Ducks, this former teammate last played for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Drafted by the Ducks. Last played for the Carolina Hurricanes. That is my good friend and former D partner, Jake Gardner.
These are
2-1.
tough questions.
Thank
I'm
you,
just going
JP.
to throw it out there.
Well, I don't think so, but I have
If
the
they're
answers
tough,
in front
JP
of me.
came up with them.
Okay, so again, because it's 2-1, I'm going to give Frankie C an opportunity to tie this
Coming
thing
back to
up.
me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Who was the only Leaf to play 82 games during the 15-16 season?
82 games during the 15-16 season.
That's what I said.
No injuries, no healthy scratches. So
You can't buy
and I
time
are
by
out.
just repeating
what
the
is
question
this?
back. to us.
Listen, we got a lot of time here, guys.
How long does
I'm
he
gonna-
get before I get to cut him off?
I'm going to go with P.A. Parento.
Wrong.
Was Phil the Thrill still on the team that year, the Iron Man? He was gone, eh?
Well, I didn't say that. That's not the answer. So
Phil was dealt the year before.
Yeah, the year before. Okay.
Okay. So do I have to come up with another guess?
Well,
you could. You have a chance to steal.
We should have a buzzer here. I mean, these guys are killing me.
Full 82 games?
Yeah, who would have played a full 82 that season? I know a lot of guys were in the infirmary that year, and then there were some players shuttered off to.
I think we had 35
areas.
The island.
We had 35 guys.
We had
wear
a massive
jersey
roster.
It was
that
crazy. The roster. There was a guy that was in the lineup for all.
I think what you're saying is you don't know.
I'll throw a guess out. I'm going to go Bozak.
For the love of gracious,
I got a guess. Do you want to keep guessing on this one?
One more.
Grappler, what do you think?
It's not going to get you any points, but by all means, keep guessing.
Is it Michael Grabner?
No, sorry,
No,
guy.
it's not. All right.
Nice try, guy. It was Morgan Riley.
He played all 82 that year?
Did I say
I don't
Morgan
believe
Riley?
that for a second.
Okay. And we'll fire this one back to Peter, who has the 2-1 lead, ladies and gentlemen.
Hold on, let's be clear. I am staring at Hockey DB and 2015-16 Maple Leafs right under GP next to Morgan Riley, 8-2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fact.
I thought for sure he was one of those
you mean
guys
you had to
that got
verify
hurt
all
at the
these
end of the
questions?
season.
These aren't correct? Wow. Okay, so Peter, who assisted on Nylander's first NHL goal?
Who was Willie Nylander's first goal?
A hint. The answer also is he assisted on Michael Nylander's last NHL goal. His father's last NHL goal and Williams' first. Who would that be?
Well, it's got to be someone old, but who would that be? Guys,
I can't tell you.
Do you know the answer?
I do know the answer.
I might have to pass.
Oh, defer.
Throw a name out at least.
Roman Polak.
Oh. Weak.
Foley.
Yeah.
Brooks
Yes.
He won a face-off right back to Willie Nylander, off the half wall, wrist shot, back of the net. What do you say?
Glory, glory.
Frankie just gave you a
Play-by-play. Play-by-play.
I'm so outmatched here.
That's exactly how it happened. And then we all celebrated.
Full disclosure, I got a goldfish memory, so I don't like my odds
all tied up, buddy. You're doing pretty good.
Here.
Okay, so Grappler, what are you telling me? Which one is the Fugazi question?
The next question.
So we'll just forget about that one.
Move to the next question.
Okay.
I'll reward it and we'll send you an updated one.
What are we at?
Thank you
We're
very
at
much.
2-2 right now.
2-2. We're 2-2. This one goes to Frankie C. 2015-16 was Connor McDavid's rookie season. How many Connors played for the Leafs that year?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to name them, or else I won't know how I'll get them all.
That would
Connor
be
Brown
nice.
played for the team.
Yeah.
Connor Carrick played for the team. I'm trying to think if there's any more up front.
Is there?
Jimmy, don't try and goat me into saying a number, and I can't remember the faces.
I just asked a question.
Yeah. Those are the only two that are coming to mind right now. In net, we didn't have any Connors. On the back end, we would have had Polak, Hunwick, myself, Jake, Morgan, Renat Valiev, Victor Louvre. So I don't think there's another one on the back end. If anything, there might be one up front. But who would it be?
So are you going
Connor
with
Brown.
1, 2, 3, 4?
Give me 2.
2.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Frankie C has jumped into a 3-2 lead, which means we're now going to Peter Holland for the next question. During the 15-16 season, Morgan Riley and Matt Hunwick finished tied for the Green Jacket, minus 17. Who was one shot back of them in second place?
Oh, man. Minus 17. That's a pretty good Sunday.
Green Jacket.
Green Jacket. You know who I love that does this is Mike Commodore when he does the Green Jacket.
He does a leaderboard every year.
Yeah, the leaderboard. I am going to say, so Mo and Honey were minus 17. I am going to say Frankie Corrado.
How dare you, buddy? How dare you?
It was a good guess. Come on.
Sort of.
So this is not a defenseman specific, or this could be anyone on the roster?
Anyone on the roster.
Anyone on the roster.
Yep. Anyone on the roster.
Minus 17.
One shot back. This individual is minus 16.
Oh, minus 16.
Yeah, one shot back.
Man. I'm going to guess a forward. I'm going to guess a forward that would have played a lot that year. Is it Kadri?
No, guy.
You're a moron.
I'm going to look at him right now.
How dare you?
No.
How dare you?
Get out of here.
Yeah.
What the hell were you doing up
Grappler,
there?
we were just becoming friends.
Wow.
How does that make its way onto the trivia question?
It did.
You didn't even play that much.
And you guessed him.
I knew that was coming.
But you guessed him, and he couldn't guess you.
And as soon as he said it, he must have played a lot. I was like, this one's going to hurt bad.
Yeah.
Did you know it was you? I guess not, or else you would have guessed yourself.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
That's
It just
all right,
made
buddy.
it worse.
200-foot player.
Wow.
I was just in some really important situations against some really good players.
You guys
No,
gonna
I
be
would
okay?
I would say your teammates failed you.
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
You're just pointing fingers.
set
now.
of circumstances.
Thank you, Lou.
No one's
Yeah.
fault.
No one's fault.
Thanks, Lou. It's nice to hear
That was
from you.
reassuring when he said that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. And it's 3-2 for Frankie C. We're going back to Peter Holland. During the 2016 season, 15-16, Dion Phaneuf was dealt to the Ottawa Senators in a 9-player trade. Name at least 2 of the other players involved in that deal. At least 2.
Players.
Colin Greening. And who was the another big guy that came over? He didn't end up playing a whole lot. Come on, guys.
We can't give you a hint,
9
man.
players.
This is a layup. This is a slam dunk layup.
9 players.
This is a 2-foot putt, no break.
Yeah, but you don't understand the type of memory that I have.
But you just got to get to know your teammates. That's all.
Yeah, you either know it or you don't.
So you said who? You said Colin Greeny?
Yeah, I said
Shout
Colin
out to Greeny. He was at the Clune wedding. Great guy.
Harvard grad.
Yeah.
You are the master of slipping stuff in. So is that a stiff job?
Yeah. Pass.
No good? You're
No,
passing?
yeah, no good, man.
Jared Cowan.
There we go.
Colin Greening, Jared Cowan.
That's right.
Who else did we? We
sneaky
had
little devil.
Tobias Lindbergh was in that
Matt
deal.
Fratton?
Fratty went the other way, though. Fratty was going
Yeah, well,
to...
the 9 players.
I was
any
thinking,
2 of the 9.
you know who I was thinking of? It's too late now. I lost, but Milan McCulloch.
He's in there, yep.
Mahalo.
That's the name I couldn't come up
What a
with.
great guy, by
Frankie
the
C
way.
is
Well, that's
almost insurmountable 4-2
Great guy. I
lead.
forgot about him. I just remembered Cowan. He was towering on the blue
How about
line, but I don't
Casey
think
Bailey?
he ever played a game for us. Casey Bailey went the other way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss Dion.
Tobias Lindbergh?
We
I
all
miss Dion.
We all miss Dion.
Yeah.
The noof.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
What do we got, Jimmy? What's the score now?
It's 4-2 for Frankie C.
You want to
So-
give Pete the question? See if he
Yeah,
can.
well, we got to make a
Pete the
game of it. Otherwise, tune-out factor. Which goalie had more wins during the 2015-16 season? Bernier, Reimer, or Sparks?
Bernier.
Wow. Fastball inside. Love
Yeah,
it.
He said that with a lot of conviction, too.
Yeah.
And James Reimer's a good
But-
friend of his, and he said
That was
Bernier very
But
quick.
the numbers are Bernier 12, Reimer 11, and Sparksy 6.
Wins?
Yes.
God, we didn't win a lot of games
Hey,
that
you know
year.
what?
Hence Austin
My-
Matthews. There you go.
My answer was solely based on that I believe Bernier played a lot more games, so I just
Yeah.
figured that had to be it.
Were they going? I think they were going 50-50 at the start of that year.
Yeah, and then
at
I
one
think
point.
Bernie kind of got the ropes there for a little bit of a longer stretch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What, you, myself, and James Reimer used to go to dinner quite a bit that year.
We were a crew.
And then if Reimer wasn't playing much and you and I weren't playing much, what do you think those dinners were like conversation-wise?
Pretty dark.
There was a lot of positivity there.
Pretty dark.
Okay, we'll try and tie this up, and I don't want to stretch the time limit on the segment, but here we go. And again, because it's 4-3 for Frankie C., we have to go to Peter. Uncle Leo Komarov led the Leafs with hits, 283 in the 15-16 season. Who was second?
Nazem Kadri.
For the love of gracious, come on.
Unbelievable.
Let's try and put this thing away here with a good friend of mine, Roman Polak.
Yes, sir.
220.
Yeah.
Where was Kadri? How many? Or he's not even on your sheet.
Not on
the
there.
sheet, guys.
Just Uncle Leo and Uncle Roman.
Polly had the best pregame routine I've ever seen. Grab a coffee, sit in the trainer's room with his flip-flops on, and then go out there and crush some bodies.
Yeah.
Just crush some bodies.
Pick his feet up.
He is the man.
I have to tell you, what I like
Got
about a
fuel.
physical hockey player is when you say his name, you can see the hit.
Right.
And Leo was
Yeah.
great with the hip check into the boards.
He was.
Solid. And Roman was, he's down.
All right, Jimmy. Bonus question for you.
Yes, guy.
Who represented the Toronto Maple Leafs that year at the NHL All-Star Game?
I know the answer. See, now you toss out a question
Yeah.
I know the answer to.
It's the question's for Jimmy, though. How well were you paying attention that
I don't
year?
pay attention to the All-Star game.
No?
Never.
You guys didn't talk about this
No.
at all? Pre-game show?
No,
post? You
nothing.
got an hour post-game show. You didn't talk about this?
No. Didn't show up in the radar because It's the 2015-16 season.
Well-
and in the first segment, O-Dog would get up and leave. So I'd do the out-of-town scoreboard.
Well, it was Uncle Leo.
I was going to give him a hint.
Oh, okay. It was Uncle Leo. He
Really?
went. Leo Komarov represented us at the All-Star game, but all the boys, we were joking around that year that Babs was going to go represent our team at the All-Star game. But
Okay, so what's
I
the
guess you
score
didn't find
now?
that funny, Jimmy.
We have 5 No, I didn't. I was busy. The grappler was saying something in my ear. So it's 5-3.
Yeah, 5-3 for Frank.
Okay, so we have more time. Nikolai Ehlers was drafted with the pick after this former teammate who still plays for the Maple Leafs, Peter Holland.
I have no idea.
Come on.
No, guys.
Dude.
Guys, no clue.
Okay, give him a hint.
He was already mentioned in one of our trivia questions.
Pete, let's talk this through. How many former teammates are still playing for the Maple Leafs right now from that 15-16 roster?
One?
That 2.
Well, we're only looking for one.
Morgan Riley?
Oh.
Wrong.
Oh.
Nylander.
That's right, you sneaky little
Well,
devil.
if there was only
I-
2 and I took away 1.
Yeah. But Riley would have been the 2012 draft, and that was the year that Brian Burke said that if he had the first overall pick, which was Nail Yakupov that year, he would have taken Morgan Riley with the first pick no matter what.
Well,
Like the movie Draft Day.
Right.
There's no matter what.
The fact that he wasn't willing to take Yakupov was obviously a pretty astute decision.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Good judgment there. Okay, so another one, and again, because...
Send this one to Frankie C.
Okay, so
All right, let's do it.
You're 5-3. I can't give you a point for that. You're 5-3. This former teammate has been very open about his favorite food, pierogies. Who is that player?
Pierogies?
Yep.
And played on that 15-16 team.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Do we have any Polish guys on that team?
Or pierogies is a Ukrainian thing. Been open about it. Oh, geez. Kasperi Kapanen? No.
Losers, in other words.
Yeah, opportunity knocks.
I was never going to get that one right.
I have a guess, but the problem is I'm not even sure he was speaking English at that time. So
Oh.
I don't know. He could have answered this.
No, Ixnay, no.
Soshnikov.
No.
Nikita Soshnikov? No.
Tyler Bozak.
Bozy loves pierogies?
Oh,
Since when?
Obviously, he kept it a secret. Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you come
Apparently,
up
you
with
were the
that
only
one,
one.
Grappler?
Yeah, Grappler's the only one who knew.
Yeah.
It's called research. I don't know what to tell you.
Wow.
All right, we're going to fact check that
I'm
one.
looking
We'll
at
send a
articles. I
text.
was looking at articles from like 2017, and yeah, I guess when Bozak was back home in, I guess, where was he from? Saskatchewan, and
Yeah.
he's of Ukrainian descent, and there was some, I guess, really good pierogies going down over there.
Clearly,
Oh, okay.
he kept it quiet. It was not discussed in the dressing room.
No pierogies in the dressing
All
room.
right, let's try and tie this thing up. Maybe we'll create some overtime. Who was, and we'll throw this at Peter, who was your oldest player on the 2015-16 team? The oldest player.
Well, that had to be Poli. Was Robidaw on Roby Island then?
It was on Robidaw Island that year. I don't know if that counts.
No, it does not count.
That does not count?
Does not count.
Oldest player on the team that year.
Yeah.
I am going to say...
I'm sure you bumped into him.
I'm going to say it had to be Poli. That's my Polak guess. No?
Sorry.
No, I'm torn between two guys right now. I'm not going to say my answer, but I'm thinking it's either P.A. Parento or Matt Hunwick.
No.
Okay.
Morons! I can't take it.
It's Brad Boyes.
Boise.
Oh,
Boise,
Boys.
33 years old.
Local guy,
he was
too.
grizzled.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he was old.
Well, grizzled.
No,
I like that.
Yeah, Boise. Boise's a quiet guy, man. He just went about his business every day and
Turned 34 at the end. Well, towards
the end of that year?
Yeah, April 2016. He turned
All right.
34.
Shout out to Boise.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Well
that guy
done.
could dish the biscuit.
Yeah.
Well, he could score, but he could
Sneaky.
also, he would make some passes to me. I'd get back to the bench. I'm like, man, how did you know I was there?
Yeah, and he always have like a little smirk on his face too after he did it. He's like, you knew I was going to put it there.
Yeah, you knew I was
Boise's
gonna
a
put
good-
it on
Jimmy,
your
good
tape.
job steering the ship there.
It was tough. You know, they mangled the actual MC name, so it was a tough hill to climb.
Grappler, good
damn
job
act
putting those
together.
together.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Okay, coming up next, open segment then at the top of the hour. Who do we have? We've got confirm or deny at the top of the hour. Impressive. So more game hijinks here on OverDrive and TSN 1050 and TSN 2. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you the score. In fact, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score is what I was trying to say there. Just a couple of seconds. So coming up next, we'll be playing confirm or deny. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050 and TSN 2.